Good afternoon. I'm Stephanie Shearholtz from NASA's Office of Communications. We're here at Kennedy Space Center preparing for a launch Friday at 5:42 a.m. Eastern Time of SpaceX's 15th Commercial Resupply Services mission to the International Space Station. This Dragon will carry more than 5,900 pounds of supplies and payloads, including critical materials to directly support some of the hundreds of science and research investigations taking place on the orbiting laboratory. Here to discuss preparations for this mission are Kirk Shireman, Manager of the International Space Station Program at NASA's Johnson Space Center, Jessica Jensen, Director of Dragon Mission Management at SpaceX, Mike McAleenan, Weather Officer with the 45th Weather Squadron of the U.S. Air Force, and David Brady, Assistant Program Scientist in the International Space Station Program Science Office at NASA's Johnson Space Center. And I will now hand it over to Kirk to get us started.
All right, good afternoon. It's a pleasure to be here with you and be prepared for this SpaceX 15 launch. It's a great time to be in Florida. It's also a great time to be launching very early in the morning, which I'm sure we'll hear about in just a minute. So this time of year, early morning launches are a blessing. I'd really like to talk a little bit about what's going on board the International Space Station. A very busy time. Here on June 6th, we launched 3 crew members. So Sergei Prokopyev, Alexander Gerst, and Serena Anyun Chancellor launched on the 6th from Kazakhstan and arrived to the International Space Station on the 8th. They immediately got busy. Last week they supported the spacewalk, which really prepared the way for the space station to be ready to accept the first commercial uncrewed flights to ISS. So we're looking forward to those flights here in the near future. And then immediately took a day of rest after that, and then we spent this week making some repairs to the airlock. So the airlock, some of the equipment's been in the airlock from the time it was built. So it was essentially at the end of its life. It's very critical hardware. Some of it's like 3,000 pounds per square inch, oxygen hoses and so on. So the crew spent the last couple of days making the repairs and actually finished those repairs this morning. Those repairs is probably the wrong word. Basically swapping out old equipment that was completed this morning. We're going through the leak checks and all going very, very well. So great work by the crew on orbit. In addition to all this, they've been preparing all the scientific facilities for this sprint of research that we're going to be doing over here the next 30 days. So we have 1.7 tons of pressurized cargo going up, and about 1.7 tons of cargo coming back down when we're done. And it's just chock full of utilization. So David Brady will tell you some of the details of that, but a very, very exciting mission in terms of science. The crew is ready, the vehicle's ready, we're all ready. So looking forward to that. Let me at this point in time pass it over to Jessica Jensen. You can tell us about the Dragon.
Will do. Good afternoon. So SpaceX is targeting a 5:42 and 42 seconds a.m. Eastern Daylight Time instantaneous launch of Falcon 9 tomorrow, June 29th from Space Launch Complex 40 here at Cape Canaveral Air Force Station in Florida. Like Kirk said, the good news about the early morning launch is less chance of lightning storms, but also this is 45 minutes before sunrise. So there's a chance it'll be a spectacular show in the sky. So it's definitely worth getting up for. If we have to scrub due to weather or any other reason, our next launch attempt is July 1st at 4:54 and 28 seconds a.m. Eastern Daylight Time. We do have one item that we are currently assessing if it's a risk to the mission. We are currently going through our launch readiness review right now with NASA as well as all of our engineers. But as of now, we are still targeting launch in the morning. Late load is proceeding at the pad. We currently have all of the standard cargo installed, and then late load is all the time critical cargo. Most of that is also installed as well. All of that gets installed between L-24 hours and L-12 hours, and then we button up the vehicle and go vertical for launch. Dragon's going to berth with the space station the morning of Monday, July 2nd, where it's going to stay for approximately 1 month before it returns to Earth. This is SpaceX's third resupply mission for NASA, where we're flying both a flight-proven Falcon 9 as well as a previously flown Dragon spacecraft. This Falcon 9 booster previously supported the NASA TESS Planet Finder mission just over 2 months ago. This will also be the final Block 4 configuration of a Falcon 9 booster that SpaceX flies. So all the boosters from here on out will be the Block 5 version. This Dragon completed the CRS-9 mission in July of 2016. During that mission, it delivered the International Docking Adapter to the space station, and that is the port that all future commercial crew vehicles will use. For the remainder of the CRS-1 contract, which is through CRS-20, the plan is to use refurbished Dragons. Then on CRS-21, we move on to the CRS-2 contract. That's where we're going to use the Dragon 2 vehicle, which is the same vehicle as commercial crew. So what we'll basically be doing is changing out seats and consoles for cargo accommodations. This is SpaceX's 12th launch of 2018 and our 9th use of a flight-proven booster this year alone, and it's only been 6 months. It's definitely an exciting time. We're launching on average every 2 weeks, and we're flying more flight-proven boosters than we're flying new vehicles. So we've been able to increase our launch cadence thanks to the advances we've made in reusability and the large number of boosters that we have successfully landed. To date, we have successfully landed 25 first-stage boosters. So from the get-go, SpaceX has set out to make spaceflight more like commercial air travel. We want to make it safe, affordable, and utilizing vehicles that can be reflown repeatedly. This is the key to the future of a civilization where we have thousands to millions of people exploring the stars and living out on other planets. So tomorrow's mission, you can always think of it as one small step towards that goal, from the launch itself to the critical space science cargo we're delivering to the space station. So I'd like to close by thanking our partners at the Air Force Range and the FAA for their tremendous support. Also, a huge thanks to NASA. We are obviously honored to have this partnership to carry their most critical cargo. So we are looking forward to a successful launch tomorrow, as well as many more in the future.
Great, thank you, Jessica. Now we'll pass it over to Mike and find out how the weather looks.
All right, good afternoon. Well, it is summertime in Central Florida, so we've had a 3 or 4 day reprieve of thunderstorms over the spaceport, as most of it's been inland, but I think today is going to end that little run. We have the west coast sea breeze moving over towards us today, and I think it will be in the area maybe 3 or 4 o'clock, and we'll have the normal afternoon thunderstorms on our side of the peninsula starting today. In addition, if we can go to satellite, you can kind of see that area starting and moving across the state at this time. We'll probably grow some of our own thunderstorms, as the sea breeze is not going to make it too far inland. And just on the northern edge of the picture, you might be able to make out an extra feature, a little upper level trough that's pushing in. And that's going to maybe add some oomph to the thunderstorms later this evening and make them possibly last a little bit longer than is typical. So next we should go to our launch slide. Still, as everybody's been alluding to, 5:42 in the morning is a great time for southwest flow. Even with that upper level trough, model's been very consistent, showing that all that debris cloud should be cleared out and diminished for launch time. We have to be particularly unlucky to have all that kind of come together as some kind of extra outflows and still be lingering around at launch time. So that's really what the 10% is trying to indicate, is that if something really unlucky happens, that we'll still have those clouds around at 5:42 tomorrow morning. Other than that, on our 48-hour delay slide, we have the ridge axis moving back up to our north, which typically is a good sign for thunderstorms. Our flow switches from southwest, that pins our sea breeze up against our coast, to a more of an easterly flow. But with that ridge movement is a little boundary, and that's going to come through, unfortunately, right around backup launch time. So we have a chance of thick clouds with that. It's not really diurnally influenced, so it's when the timing of that ridge moves. So a 30% chance, still pretty good, but we'll have that thick cloud as our main concern for that backup day. So thank you. We'll see what those clouds diminish this afternoon. We'll have some rumbles for sure, but hopefully get the vehicle vertical quicker versus later.
Great, thank you. And David Brady from Program Science Office, could you talk to us a little bit about the science and investigations that will be facilitated with this delivery?
You bet, Stephanie. Well, good afternoon, everyone. This mission will continue the International Space Station's goals of scientific discovery, benefits for humanity, and exploration of the cosmos. The space station conditions provide the type of conditions we need to do groundbreaking research, including microgravity, and a vantage point that provides a very good, useful platform for our Earth and our space science folks. This particular mission enables 27 new investigations to become part of the over 300 investigations that will be running over Expeditions 55 and 56. This brings us to a grand total of 2,600 investigations, representing over 3,000 researchers and over 1,500 publications so far. In the area of research, in the research area of biology and biotechnology, I just want to highlight a few of the investigations that are going on this flight. The NGX cancer therapy investigation evaluates whether endothelial cells represent a valid model to test the effect of vascular targeted agents on normal blood vessels. This investigation may result in a cost-effective method that does not require animal testing and which may develop safer and more effective vascular targeted drugs. The Rodent Research 7 investigation, which is part of our Rodent Research series of investigations, examines how the space environment affects the community of microorganisms in the gastrointestinal tract. It also looks at the microgravity's effect on physiological systems that are known to be affected by these microorganisms, including the immune system and the circadian and sleep systems. The space algae investigation explores the genetic basis for productivity of algae cultivated in space. The cultivation of algae offers potential as a system for recycling carbon dioxide, which is one of the things we need in our life support systems. And it also potentially could provide food for crew members on long space voyages. So it's another benefit of this investigation, or potential benefit. Many of these species synthesize oils that are important for human nutrition. So we're looking forward to seeing what we get out of the biology and biotechnology research items on this flight. Moving on to the area of research in Earth and space science, the German Space Agency, or DLR, Earth Sensing Imaging Spectrometer, or DESIS investigation will verify and enhance the use of space-based hyperspectral imaging capabilities for Earth remote sensing. The instrument has a number of commercial and environmental management applications, including the management and monitoring of agricultural resources, forest ecosystems, and soil degradation. In addition, it can be used for urban development applications and inland water monitoring for things like pollution. In the research area of physical science, the Advanced Colloids Experiment Temperature 2, or ACE-T2, is part of our ACE series of investigation on colloids. This particular experiment is looking at the assembly of complex structures from micron scale colloidal particles, and regulating the temperature helps enable the control of the particle interaction, and this leads to the growth of complex structure and provides a better understanding of how these complex interactions lead to these complex structures. And finally, in the research area of technology development, I'm sure that y'all have all heard about the pilot study with the Crew Interactive Mobile Companion, or SIMON. This is a technology demonstration project as well as an observational study that aims to provide the first insights into the effects on crew support by an artificial intelligent device, AI device, in terms of efficiency and acceptance during long-term missions in space. Thank you.
That's fascinating. Thank you. So we will now take some questions in the room and then go to questions on the phone. So Ken, do you want to get us started?
Hi, Ken Kramer, Rocket Stolen Space Up Close. For Kirk, you brought up the commercial crew. Can you tell us what is the latest schedule for the uncrewed and crewed test flight? And Jessica, can you specifically talk about yours? Thanks.
Yeah, the answer is no, I can't tell you. I wish I could. I don't. So I just don't know. So there's a lot of work, as you know. The companies are working very, very hard to finish the design and certification of their vehicles. So both companies are in various stages of that work. There's, in addition to actually manufacturing and doing environmental tests, there's analytical verification, and then NASA participates in all those things. Then there's launch processing and so on. So I can tell you that the Commercial Crew Program, the International Space Station Program, Boeing and SpaceX are all working very closely together. We're evaluating exactly when opportunities might be and when they'll be ready, but we're not ready to set a date, an official date, I would say, at this point in time. We're working to that. I think it's close to when we'll be able to do it. It's just at this point in time, it's not solid enough, really. And this is Kirk's opinion anyway, to say exactly what the date is. I'm sure companies are working to a specific date, but I would say all those things converging and saying, hey, we as a commercial crew program, a station program, a SpaceX and a Boeing, we're going to fly on this date. We have not agreed to those dates just yet. So as soon as we do, and it'll be soon, we'll let you know.
I can give you a little bit of information on our Demo 1 mission. So the Demo 1 mission is the first mission under Commercial Crew. It's going to be the unmanned mission to the International Space Station. So that vehicle, the capsule plus the trunk, has left Hawthorne. It is currently at NASA's Plum Brook facility in Ohio. It's the world's largest vacuum chamber, so it's been undergoing thermal vacuum testing there to ensure that Dragon can withstand the extreme environments of the thermal environments and vacuum environments that it will see in space. Once it leaves Plum Brook, it's going to come down to Cape Canaveral for final launch processing. So that's where we are right now. It's at Plum Brook and getting ready to leave and head down to the Cape.
And Ken, the latest target dates are always listed at nasa.gov/commercial crew.
Those latest dates are August, November, and December, so I think we can forget those dates then, right?
SpaceX is still targeting August and December.
Sure, people are working to those dates.
Yes.
What I'm saying is we as a combined group haven't said exactly when we're going to fly. So people have to work to dates, it's very normal. So that's normal process. What you're hearing is very normal. This is not a negative thing. It's actually very normal. But in the end, we have, in the space station, for instance, we have Progress's vehicles, we have Soyuz vehicles, we have spacewalks. It has to fit in amongst all those things. And so we just have to sit down all together, agree when the vehicles are going to be ready, when the certification's ready, and when it fits in the program plan. And that's the work that's still in front of us.
Bill, you have a question?
Bill Harwood, CBS. Well, Kurt, I mean, just to be honest, I've been covering NASA a long time. I don't know anybody but you who says there's going to be a flight in August. So, I mean, if that's not real, I don't know why y'all keep telling us that. I mean, I'm just curious.
I don't think I told you that.
Well, I mean, that's like Stephanie says, NASA keeps referring to August as a date, and everybody in this room knows that's not going to happen. I would think, anyway. I mean, really.
Well, so of course, this is a different way of doing business than we've done before, but the way we do this right now is we talk to the companies. Actually, I say we, frankly, it's the Commercial Crew Program, but they talk to the companies. The companies say, hey, here's our target date, and that's the date that you see. So there's a meeting between the Commercial Crew Program and SpaceX and the Commercial Crew Program and Boeing, and they agree on a date, and that is the target date. So what you see is that target date. Perhaps the thing we have not done as well about is really explaining all that's involved in flying a flight to space station, and those dates are still, we're still in negotiation about what those dates will be. They'll be forthcoming very soon, but there are a lot of moving parts, many of which are not in many of the moving parts are not in the purview of any one individual. So it's really all of us getting together and agreeing when are all those parts going to fit together and create the opportunity.
That's great. Do we have questions about this mission that is scheduled to fly tomorrow? Marcia?
Marcia Dunn, Associated Press. Why can't you launch on Saturday? And I'm assuming you're ditching the booster because it's old. And for Kirk, I know this is a German experiment with the AI Simon. What's NASA's interest in it as you look ahead to Moon, Mars, and how something like artificial intelligence could be helpful in your plans?
All right, well, I'll start with why we can't launch on Saturday. So we basically get the ISS trajectory from NASA, and then we analyze it. And if the ISS trajectory, so we're launching out of Florida, if the ISS trajectory is pretty far off from that, on any given launch day, it's going to be difficult for Dragon to catch up and rendezvous with it. So there are, it's approximately one every few days is actually a no-go just from a pure catching up with the space station trajectory perspective. So this is pretty normal for us to have days in between that don't work. Sometimes we get the back-to-back, sometimes we have to skip a day. So that's all that is. That's the only reason there's no date on Saturday. And then for the booster, yes, so this is an expendable version of the booster. It's the last block 4. We basically look at the needs of our manifest. We make decisions on a case-by-case basis if we should recover those boosters or if they will be expendable.
Yeah, it's very normal, by the way. Some of these things, even though SpaceX might be happy to launch, it doesn't meet our science requirements because of the rendezvous time frame. It gets so long, it doesn't help. So it's not necessarily SpaceX's fault they can't get there. It might be just the overall requirements of the mission. AI. So clearly, as we put humans further and further away from home, the communication delays get longer and longer. You can't have a real-time interaction like we are having right now. And so you have to be more autonomous. You would, obviously, if you have an emergency, you can picture a medical emergency. Well, if you're on the ground, you could talk to a doctor and do something right away. But if it's 20 minutes between conversation, boy, it would be an unfortunate situation to have 40 minutes between when you ask a doctor and you get a response back. So, and that's an example. Clearly, there are spacecraft issues, and you can think of all of human knowledge. You might need to access parts of that. So having AI and having that knowledge base and the ability to adapt to tap into it in a way that's useful for the task that you're doing is really critical for having humans further and further away from the planet. So I think these kinds of things are really, really important for having the species, for having humans live further away from the planet. This is one I know. Actually, we've been talking to a number of entities who are interested in these kinds of things. So it's really about that. From an ISS perspective, forget exploration, but for just ISS, I think we could be more efficient. If you can tap into information, the quicker you can tap into information and respond, the easier it is. I cheat. I bring an iPad here and I can flip through things, but I would much rather have a little floating robot here and they would just whisper in my ear. So I think just in general, doing things in space, even in low Earth orbit, would be great. But as we go forward, it's not even an option. I think we have to have autonomy. We'll have to have tools like this to have the species successfully live far away from Earth.
Chris?
Chris Gephardt with NASA Spaceflight. Jessica, I think I heard you right. There's an issue that you're tracking that could impact launch tomorrow. Is that correct?
So there's an open item. We are assessing if it's a risk or not. So what we have to do is we're doing some further analysis today on one of Dragon's thermal protection panels. And so that analysis will close out later today. But yeah, we're just doing some additional analysis on it to make sure everything's good for flight.
And for Kirk, if I remember the schedule correctly, after CRS-15, there's a bit of a gap until October or November before the next U.S. resupply flight launches. Was that something that was planned or just something that came about due to natural evolution of the visiting vehicle schedules?
Actually, there's really not, if you consider all the vehicles, there's really not. So July 10th, I believe, we have a Russian progress. September, thank you. So it's the 10th somewhere, I promise. So 9th, 10th, there's a Russian vehicle. By the way, that one's going to be cool. It's going to get to the station in 2 orbits. So it'll be the quickest vehicle. Well, I should say it's supposed to. This will be, obviously there can be ballistic issues, if we had to do a reboost, for instance, between now and then, maybe it doesn't. But that's a fun one to watch because it'll get to ISS quick. There's an HTV, a Japanese cargo vehicle, be launching September 10th. And that's probably another one of those. It might be on the GMT boundary, but I believe it's the 10th of. So if you look at all those vehicles, we have a pretty solid cadence of supply vehicles coming up, and each one of those has unique capabilities and drives certain mission requirements. For instance, HTV's bringing up batteries, big batteries for our solar arrays. We'll have to do a series of spacewalks, and so we need to have some room around that flight to do our spacewalks. We don't want to have a bunch of spacewalks the same time we're doing SpaceX 16. We wouldn't. It's too much work for the crew that we have on board. So I think we have a really good plan. Just and obviously, if things go on, we'll evolve that plan.
Jim?
Jim Siegel, Spaceflight Insider. I have one question for David and one question for Jessica. David, regarding the cargo, more than 5,900 pounds, right? I'm interested in how much roughly of that is going to be in the pressurized section and in the trunk. And then secondly, how does that work out roughly? What percentage of that would be supplies? What percentage would be spare parts? What percentage would be scientific investigations? Do you know any of that information?
I can address at least the scientific portion of that in terms of the research investigations. On the way up, it's going to be carrying, the Dragon spacecraft will be carrying about 1,757 kilograms of research supplies. And then on return, it's supposed to be coming back with 1,297 kilograms on the science side. And I'll have to get you the external numbers after the conference.
Jessica, you mentioned that this was the last Block 4 flight. So would you happen to know how many Block 4 flights there have been, or is this like the 15th one or the 20th one, or whatever?
Jeez, I can't do that math on the top of my head. You can check with the media team afterwards. They can get you that exact number because I'll just be making up something. But I can tell you the unpressurized cargo on this mission, we are flying up a latching end effector as well as the eco-stress payload. And the eco-stress payload, I believe, is a payload from a science perspective that measures, the stress level in plants across the U.S. and I think in other locations as well.
895 kilos, if you
There
want to
you
know.
go.
And I have all those numbers here if you want them, but maybe it might be
And
better
we have an overview
afterwards.
fact sheet to post it on.
And when is the Dragon capsule due to return?
Actually, it will return. We are targeting a roughly August 2nd return date.
August 2nd. Okay. And when is it supposed to arrive at the International Space Station?
July 2nd. So
July
if we launch
2nd.
on the primary attempt, it will arrive on July 2nd. If we launch on the backup attempt on Sunday, it will arrive on July 3rd.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
We'll go to the question on the phone from Stephen Clark, and then we'll come back to the room.
Hi, Stephen Clark from Spaceflight Now. Thanks for taking my call. I think the second stage of this vehicle is going to be doing some additional experiments after deployment of the Dragon in orbit. It's following a different profile than usual. Are you doing some experimentation with the upper stage after separation of Dragon for reuse or for on longer duration flights? Is there another burn planned before the deorbit? Thanks.
So we have our nominal mission profile for Dragon deploy, and then we will be doing a long coast demonstration.
Okay, another question in the room. I think we have one over here.
Emery Kelly with Florida Today. Jessica, the turnaround between tests and now is pretty quick. Are you guys just getting better at refurbishing these boosters? Is there a specific reason? I might be wrong, but that might be the quickest Block 4 turnaround as well.
I believe it was the fastest turnaround. Yes, our team has done an awesome job. So we started reflying boosters just in March of last year, and since then we've already reflown 13 boosters. So, you figure the first one's going to probably take the most amount of time, and basically our teams have just gotten extremely efficient at the refurbishment process. They know what to look for, they know what signs they're looking for, they know what's going to have to be replaced. So yeah, we've just gotten extremely efficient, and we're able to turn this one around in just over 2 months.
I think there was one more question in the room. No? Okay, Bill? Then we'll wrap up.
Bill Harvey again for Jessica this time. The installation panels you were talking about, the open item you still have, is that can you maybe just tell us what that is? I mean, is that an issue going uphill, downhill, or both? What is the issue?
Yeah, I can't go into too much detail about it, but it's one of Dragon's thermal protection panels, and we are doing analysis. We're going to check analysis for ascent and reentry on it.
Is it an overheating issue in one area of the vehicle?
I mean, it's a thermal protection panel, so we are doing, part of it is thermal analysis.
Okay, I think we're limited on time, so we will go ahead and wrap up for today. Thank you all for joining us today to discuss this commercial resupply mission to the International Space Station. Join us again tomorrow on NASA TV at 5:15 a.m. Eastern Time for NASA Television's live coverage of the launch. You can, of course, follow along online to all the news related to Friday's launch at nasa.gov/SpaceX and life and science aboard the space station at nasa.gov/station. Thank you.